everyone, this is Nikki of Nikki Hearts Cards, and I'm here today with this super cute shaker card. We are going to be using a lot of Catherine Pooler and Scrapbook.com products today. We're going to use some of the Catherine Pooler inks, and while we make this card, I am going to show you some of the unique properties of these inks. So we'll be making a beautiful butterfly card that has a shaker, and it also has, if you may not notice this, but I have made the colored cardstock. So a lot of these color coordinating pieces we are gonna make with the ink. So lastly, we'll use one of the shaker mix that coordinates with these colors from Catherine Pooler, and we'll get started. The first thing that I think you should know about Catherine Pooler inks is that they are a foam pad. This is almost like a makeup foam, and they are super juicy. So that helps us with some of our techniques. The first thing we're gonna do is ink blend with this. And I'm gonna get a good amount of ink, and I'm just gonna start off the page blending onto this smooth paper. So I'm using the Altenew large blender brush, and I'm just pulling that across. I just want to get this blue, so we're basically making the front panel. I want to get this blue down onto the white cardstock, completely covering it, but not a super heavy amount because we're gonna stamp on top of it. So once you have your front panel, the color that you want, which for me it's this light blue and it's kind of a gradient from the edges, I'm gonna take the same color. So this is still Cove Blue, and I'm stamping with a pattern on the front page. So in a way, I'm making my own patterned paper here. And this is the exact color that I just blended with. It's just a heavier amount of it, so it matches perfectly. Next, we're going to create the butterflies that are the accents on the card. We're going to use two stamps. These do not have layered stamps with them, but I'm going to show you a way to use multiple ink colors on these stamps and create a really cool focal point. We're going to start with pink champagne. Our medium layer will be rouge, and our darkest layer will be peppermint scrub. And we're going to use some kind of ink blending on the stamp, so I think you're going to love it. So I've got the paper and everything here in the MISTI, and now I'm going to start with my lightest layer, and that is going to be pink champagne. And I'm just going to stamp it as a full bottom layer because all of these colors match each other and they blend together well. Next, I'll come in with my middle color, which is rouge, and I zoomed in on these stamps so I can show you that I'm putting the ink down about 2/3 of the wing. So one nice thing about the mini ink pads is that they are small and you can get into details like this pretty easily. You can still do it with a larger ink pad, but I do love this straight edge because I can kind of mark off on my symmetrical stamp so that I've got the ink in the same areas on both wings. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it just helps kind of keep with the design. So once I get my ink laid down on the stamp, I'm going to grab a small detail tool, and this one is by Altenew, and I'm just going to go along the edges and blur them a little bit. So I'm just kind of rubbing it along where I have a harsh edge of ink, and this makes the butterfly look like you ink blended it. It just really softens it, but still gives it that great focal point. So let me show you what it looks like. All right, and look at how cool that looks. You could stick with just that, but I'll show you what it looks like when we add the even darker layer. I'm gonna do the second butterfly off camera, and I'm gonna take you through how we add the extra detail to this last butterfly to make it even more awesome. So I'm adding just to the edges, and I know that's a little hard to see because I have to hold the ink pad over it, but I'm going to raise it up and show you how much ink. But basically just along the edges so it's an outline. You could bring it in further if that's easier for you, or you could take ink directly from the ink pad onto a brush and brush it on that area. You just may need to stamp a couple times. You see that little line of ink I have right there? I'm going to make the line not quite as sharp just by barely tapping along it to make sure that it looks nice and seamless. So I stamped this first one, and then now I'm going directly to the ink pad, adding some ink to my little brush and tapping it along the edges. Now I like my outlines to be very distinct, so I did this 3 times for each of my butterflies on their outside, and let me show you how this looks on the final product. Doesn't that just look amazing? I just love it. So I'm going to die cut these, use a little mint tape to hold them down. And this is another thing I wanted to point out about Catherine Pooler's inks is that they do coordinate so well that you can get these really seamless looks with these stamps. Okay, so we need to create a piece of paper that's going to be behind our patterned colored paper. And the piece of paper behind is the regular A2 size. The one that's going to be the front with our pattern on it is a little bit smaller. So I'm going to create a color coordinated piece of cardstock. This is my favorite way to use Catherine Pooler inks, is to create my own cardstock. And they are juicy enough to do this. You can just pull them down the side of your pad. If you miss a spot, you can go over it again. You can stamp a little bit on it, but it just really works well this way. You don't pull hard. These are very juicy ink pads, so you just lay it down and go along the edge. If you get yourself a big line and you need to dab it off, you can, but generally on the cards that I've made, this dries very smooth even if you think it's looking streaky. It'll just dry nice, smooth, even color, and it matches the cardstock perfectly. So with this piece, because there's going to be a shaker window that goes through to the middle of this, I am going to do a little bit of ink blending on the middle of the page as well. Ooh, look at how awesome that looks. Okay, now all we need to do is cut out a window from the front piece so that we can make a shaker card. So I'm going to use the Catherine Pooler dies called Scallop Squares. Now you get to see why we did that ink blending on the background piece. So we have our window cut out. Look at how good that looks. Oh my goodness. So now all we got to do is create the foam tape and the acetate window so that we can put shaker pieces in there. And Catherine Pooler makes this very easy with her coordinating shaker pieces. So we'll start with some acetate. I'm going to use the adhesive roller from Scrapbook.com to secure the piece of acetate. It's nice to use a non-liquid glue to do this because you don't want the glue to squeeze out onto your piece of acetate, and that roller works perfect for it. So now we have a window. Next, we need to build up around this window with foam tape. Scrapbook.com has these nice foam strips that make this very easy. So I'm going to take these strips, and the first thing I'm going to do is create the window that will hold the shaker pieces. So if you think of this window, it needs to be completely enclosed so that the shaker pieces can't escape. So I'm making a box around this. Since this one's a square, it's very easy. And I'm just going to make sure there's no little areas where pieces of sequins could fit through this foam tape. After I get my window foam taped and everything secure so that pieces can't fall out, then I'm going to add foam tape to the rest of the panel because I don't want just the window to stick up on the panel. I want my panel to be very flat and even. So I'm going to add some more foam tape to the rest of the back of the panel just to give it some structure and to keep it the same height as the window. Next super important part of a shaker card is to add powder to the edges of your adhesive. So a lot of times, even though it should only be adhesive kind of on that top layer, it's nice to add some powder right through here so that if you've got a little bit of stickiness, that all of your sequins don't get stuck to the sides. Now, I'm a lover of sparkly things, and these sequin mixes are the best I've ever seen. They are so amazing, have so many little parts and pieces, and they just make your card look great. So this sentiment is a Scrapbook.com exclusive die. It's got lots of cute little things. So I did hello, and then I used my ink pad to color the blue behind the hello. So once again, perfectly coordinated cardstock. All that's left is to add our pieces to the front. It's got the cute shaker. We just need to add our butterflies and hello, and this card is finished. I hope you enjoyed this card. I had so much fun being here with you today. Make sure if you haven't done it yet that you hit the like and the subscribe on the Scrapbook.com channel, and all the details and items used in this video will be linked in the description. Have a great day. Bye.